Fresh is the word.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's a new year, 2016. First episode of Fresh is the Word for the new year. Episode number 10. I am your host, K Fresh. For this episode, we have Jax Anderson, a local Detroit singer, songwriter of the band Flint Eastwood. Basically, Flint Eastwood is Jax Anderson. Jax Anderson is Flint Eastwood. It used to be kind of a band thing before, but she's, basically, it's like a 9 Inch Nails thing. This interview was recorded a couple months ago at the Assemble Sound Church down in Detroit, so shout out to Garrett and the crew down there for letting me use the space to interview Jax. There's a new Flint Eastwood EP out recently called Small Victories. That shit is great, so go ahead and pick that up. We talked about music, we talked about wrestling, and we just kind of did an overview of her musical career and how she even got into music. So without further ado, here's an interview with Jax Anderson of Flint Eastwood.
Bret the Hitman Hart told the background story of him leaving WWF and going over to WCW, and it's crazy, just the background. He got totally screwed over in the transition.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah,
it was nobody knew if it was a straight shoot or if it was a work or whatever, but some of it was definitely a straight shoot. Vince was totally screwing them
oh, totally
out of it, and it's crazy, man.
It really is wild. They were talking about how that was the moment that the veil kind of dropped. They acknowledged that there was a bit of just staging to it.
Yeah.
But then after that point, it kind of became something where all of it, the reality of it and the staging of it, kind of integrated into one whole concept.
There's times when you don't even realize what's kind of true in real life and what's staged in wrestling, and they still kind of do it. Back in the day, they held it they held the whole predetermined thing lock and key.
Yeah.
To the point, if you were a new wrestler in a company, you weren't allowed to go hang out with the veterans until you understood that, hey, this is actually kind of staged. When you got into wrestling, you didn't even know it was staged. A lot of new wrestlers getting into it back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s and stuff didn't even know it was staged.
That's wild.
So they had to break it slowly, be you gotta
hate to break your dream,
but this isn't real fighting. It's real fighting kind of, but it's predetermined, so they had to break it, slowly.
That's crazy. So it's kind of you belonged to a frat. Before you knew all of the deepest, darkest secrets, you had to really prove yourself.
Yeah, it was kind of like that. It was just the whole aspect of the history of wrestling is crazy.
How did it get started? When did it first bust into popularity?
The funny thing is, I was just started watching this this documentary on the Memphis wrestling scene. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of that started in carnivals.
Makes sense.
Yeah, they just started having these guys wrestle at carnivals and stuff like that. Yeah. But then they transitioned into these awesome these big auditoriums and stuff.
Yeah.
And wrestling used to be territories. It wasn't a nationwide thing. Mm-hmm. Memphis had their territory. Atlanta
cool.
did. Around New York, they had the territory.
So you could follow different wrestlers in different territories.
Yeah, and what they would do is every once in a while, the champion of that territory would go fight the champion of another territory.
That's sick.
That's what was so cool about wrestling. And everybody, and even back then, before that veil was raised on the whole, it was predetermined and everything, people were just bloodthirsty in the crowd.
That's awesome.
If you go on YouTube and look up USWA or Smoky Mountain Wrestling, the crowd is just loud the whole match, the whole night, just the whole time, kill him, beat him up, blah blah
that's
blah.
Awesome.
It was crazy.
That's awesome.
Okay, so.
Oh, hold on.
Okay.
So Ben's here.
How's it going? Good. How are you? Good. Hey, though.
Hey! It's good seeing you, Ben.
Thank you so much.
Cool. Let's get to it.
Cool. Okay, so where'd you grow up at?
I was born on the east side of Detroit,
Okay.
and then like halfway through my childhood, moved over to Harbor Woods, stayed there most through school.
What part of the east side were you at?
I was at 8 Mile and Kelly. So
Oh,
like
I'm from that part of town. I'm from 8 and Shanner.
Right on. Yeah, we lived on Novara.
Okay,
So-
yeah.
Yeah. So I lived there, and then we lived in Harbor Woods for a while, and then after high school, tried out college for a bit, decided it wasn't for me, then just moved around the country.
What
like
high
crazy.
school did you go to?
Grosse Pointe North.
Okay, all right. I
Yeah.
went to East Detroit High School.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I was on like that dividing line of like Harper Woods and Grosse Pointe schools.
Right.
So it was cool.
What sort of a kid were you?
What kind of kid was I? Oh man, I was sassy. I was super sassy. I had two older brothers, and I was not going to be bossed around. Like I was a boss no matter where I went. I'm really happy that I've mellowed out since then and lost the sass factor. I don't know that I would want. I wouldn't have wanted to be my friend when I was a little kid. It was I was tough.
Yeah, I was super shy. I couldn't even like talk to a girl. I was just a basket case.
Oh man.
But I left it all inside of me, and then like.
It's weird, the seal that breaks after you're done with school. You're just like, fuck it, I'm going to do what I want.
Yeah, because as soon as like my senior year of high school, I was like, I had like a co-op job, so I like only went to school like half the day, and then that was also the time I started getting into the hip hop scene, and it was just like, oh my god, there's all these other people.
Yeah.
Like this is crazy, you
Yeah.
know? And I'm like, and then it took me a few years before I really started like partying, like drinking, you know, like where I'm like just drunk 5 nights out of the week. That was when I started going into the techno scene.
Ah, man.
Those people like corrupted
Yeah,
me.
they those people go hard.
Oh my god! If you think rappers and shit like that will corrupt you, go to the
racing,
techno
dude.
scene, man. Those people will corrupt you.
They go wild.
Yeah, those people will corrupt you, man. But we were just talking before, like about watching wrestling when you were younger. Who are some of your favorites?
I was a big fan of The Rock.
Hell yeah.
Really liked is it Hardy Brothers? Hardy Boys?
Yeah, the Hardy Boys. Yeah.
Hardy Boys. There you go. Yeah, I think mainly because I just liked their pants. Like they always wore really bright pants.
Yeah, it was always kind of like hot topic-ish.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
They went with this weird. It wasn't totally goth, but it was.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't totally punk.
Yeah.
But it was like.
They were cool. I feel like they were never. I mean, at least in my perception, like I would have to go back and really take a look at it again to really decide. But I feel like they were never really like the bad guys. I feel like they were always. They weren't like picking on people. Like I feel like people like Kane and Undertaker and like people like that were like known as being dicks.
Right. With the Hardy Boys, they were always high flyers doing.
Yeah, they were all doing
jumping off
crazy
the
shit, dude.
That they didn't really need to be heels or baby faces at all. They were just like impressive with, you know, going like jumping off a 25-foot ladder, you know.
Yeah.
That's all they needed to do, you know. They didn't
Yeah.
need to say they didn't need to be dicks or anything.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I was always really into WWF because I didn't have I grew up without cable.
Right.
And so I was never like able to watch WCW or like anything else other than WWF. We did watch, was it Thursday Night SmackDown?
Yeah.
Was what we would watch. Yeah, it was good. And I remember it would always come on at a time that like I was supposed to go to bed. I was supposed to like my mom was always like, "Okay, Jax, go take a bath. It's time to get ready for bed." And I was like, "No, The Rock is about to come on. Let me see the final fight. Just let me stay up a little longer."
No, what's funny about you saying that you're watching SmackDown is I was just I was listening to this old podcast with there was this wrestler maybe around that time, maybe a little after. His name was Domino.
Okay.
And there's him and this other wrestler, Doc Gallows.
Mm-hmm.
They got these gigs like in Nigeria wrestling.
Wow.
The reason why they got the gigs was because for like 2007 to 2009, the only thing Nigeria got was SmackDown. So the SmackDown stars were like the wrestling stars of Nigeria.
Yes. Yes. That is perfect. That is perfect.
So it's funny when you said that, you're like, that's the only thing we could watch was SmackDown.
The only option, I feel you, us and the Nigerians.
Okay, so growing up, how did you, eventually get into, doing music?
My dad was one of 10 kids, all of which played instruments and sang.
Oh,
and
nice.
Because we grew up without cable, we also grew up without internet. And at this time, this was in like the internet cable boom happened, and every household in America had both. And so everybody was always on their computers and I don't know, talking on AOL or whatever.
Yeah, the AOL.
On chat rooms. Yeah. So
age, sex, location.
Yeah, exactly. And so we didn't end up getting internet until like I was probably 16 or 17, and so all before that I didn't have a lot of friends in my neighborhood.
Right.
So it was this kind of thing where I would come home from school and there would just be instruments laying around. So I would naturally just pick up a guitar just to entertain myself because I was so freaking bored. Because like, how many times can you watch Maury and like Jerry Springer as like an 8-year-old and think that it's entertaining? Maury is pretty entertaining. Jerry Springer gets old, but yeah. So it basically came out of me being bored.
Was your pops a musician by trade?
What's that?
Was your pops a musician professionally, or what did you do for a living?
What did I do for a living?
No, your dad.
Oh, my dad.
Yeah.
My dad. My dad always had a slew of jobs. He was originally like a mortgage broker, but then when the housing market crashed, he like lost his job, and so he became like I don't even know the proper term for it. It's the guy that goes around neighborhoods and paints addresses on curbs. And so he would go door to door, and we would help him hand out flyers to try to get him to paint addresses on curbs. And then my mom worked retail all while I was growing up. So that was a trip, being like 9 and 10, going into like the residential areas of Detroit, and like I have probably been on every single step in the residential area of Detroit, just because we would help our dad hand out flyers all the time. And it was crazy because we would like get chased by pit bulls every once in a while, or like it's like a dangerous thing. And he would just drop us off and go to a different block. So it's like me and my older brother that's like 2 years older than me going and handing out flyers in like the ghettos of Detroit.
See, if you go in any hood and you see like people walking in the middle of the street, that's why.
Yeah. It's yeah. Like usually the curb painters are like the dudes that like, they're usually people you like don't want to make eye contact with. They're the ones that are like on bikes and you don't want to fuck with them. So it was an interesting dynamic, because going to Grosse Pointe North High School, like you go to school and like 16-year-olds are driving Mercedes and like brand new, some kids have like brand new Jeeps and brand new BMWs, and like I'm rolling up like in my dad's K car going to high school. I don't know. It was a really weird dynamic.
I remember going to Grosse Pointe North a couple times freshman year baseball, like going against them. Yeah. They were like the only team we couldn't beat.
Yeah, we had baseball on lock. Baseball and I think swimming. We had like an Olympic swimmer come out of Grosse Pointe North.
Our freshman ball team that year, we were 12-4, and I think the only team that we couldn't beat was Grosse Pointe North. Yeah. Yeah. They killed us in a doubleheader.
It's intense.
It was kind of close. We could have came back, but they just beat us both of it. And I remember, oh my God, this was probably the low point of my baseball career, which not exactly
a short-lived one.
A short-lived one, but I played all my teenage years and stuff, and I enjoyed it, loved it. But I got so pissed after striking out that I just like took the bat and I just threw it in the dugout. And then my coach just took me out of the game. My mom was like, "What was that?"
Oh, jeez.
Like, I felt so embarrassed after it.
Oh, jeez.
But I was so
angry. When you get in the heat of the moment, you do what you got to do. I was never super into sports. I was never a sports kid. I played softball for a little while. I played freshman year just because no one got cut.
Right.
They just needed extra people. I could hit the ball pretty damn good. I couldn't catch. I couldn't it confused me so much, like what to do in different situations. Like, I don't know. I'm really, as bad as it is, I'm like really bad at team sports.
I was terrible my freshman ball year. Like I was on the bench most of the time. But like I only batted like 1 for 9 the whole season. And that one hit was terrible.
At least you got that one hit though.
It was this terrible like grounder up the middle. Like somehow it got past the pitcher, and I'm like, our team was awesome, but at the same time we were awesome because we had talent, not because of any coaching. Our coach was so. He was such a dipshit.
Oh, man. See, I loved my softball coach. His name is Mr. Shervino. He was awesome. He was a very nice man. He had a lot of patience with me, which I appreciate. Right. I appreciate a lot.
Those were the days. Those were the days. So, what was like when you finally got kind of comfortable, making music, what were some of the first things that you created?
I probably got comfortable creating music around the age, like I played guitar all growing up, and then I started writing songs about the age of 16, and I mostly wrote folk songs.
Yeah.
I was very into folk music. Like somebody, I think my either junior or senior year was the year that like Arcade Fire Funeral came out, and like Sufjan Stevens' Illinois was already out. Here comes, or can you, what is it? Here Come the, or I don't know. Sufjan Stevens, something Illinois. And that kind of just like blew my mind that you could make like really interesting folk music, and it wasn't just like a girly acoustic sounding song.
Yeah.
So most of my teen years were spent making folk songs, which I'm really appreciative for, simply because it taught me the value of lyrics, and it taught me the value of just overall songwriting. And so my earlier stuff was very folk and acoustic based. And so after high school, my brother Seth had always been making beats, and so he showed me a beat of his, and I was like, oh, this is really dope. And I started singing like a melody. He's like, oh, you should go to your room right now and record that. And then we did, and we were like, oh, that was really easy to do. We should probably do that again. And so we have been doing that ever since. And it's a fun collaboration, and it's an interesting thing having another person in on a creative process. It's really strange because we had a writing session yesterday, and this person, like, we would like talk, I'm like, yeah, let's do it, and like just go banter back and forth and like develop the entire concept for like this whole part. And the person that we were writing with was like, where are you guys? Like, we speak our own language at this point. It's wild.
So when did the Flint Eastwood project start?
Flint Eastwood has been around, I want to say 2012 or 2013, I want to say. I think 2012 is when it kind of started. So 3 years now. It's kind of always been this ongoing project. Like, I was originally, when I was in high school, I was called Apple Trees and Tangerines. And instead of starting a brand new band, I switched it over to the name Power. And then we had to switch that name because it was extremely hard to find on the internet. So we were like, oh, Flint Eastwood. And so it's kind of been just this ongoing thing that never ends. It's good though.
That's great. So, back in 2013, you had the Late Nights at Bolo Ties.
Yeah.
Talk about that release. That
release was a lot of fun. That was a very fun project. It was something where we were playing a lot of live shows, and we were starting to get known for our live shows. And at this point, it was me and 3 other players that were in the band. And we were really getting known for our live show. We were playing a lot around, and we didn't have anything to sell to people, or not even to sell, just for people to listen to on their own time. And so there was a rather large demand for it. And so I kind of went back through my catalog and was like, okay, what are 4 songs that would be cohesive and consistent and sound like it's one band? And they just so happened to be these 4 rock songs. And so we kind of got branded as a rock band unintentionally. Like, I never set out to make rock music. It just kind of happened. And so, yeah, so Late Nights and Bolo Ties happened, and we toured it for 3 years. And since then, the other band members have gone on to their own projects, and now Flint Eastwood is just me, and I create pop music, and it's my heart and soul, and I love it more than anything.
So before that release, you were doing these live shows, getting known as a live band. What were you performing at that time? What was kind of like the idea of the band before you had this idea of actually putting out music?
The idea was just to play live music. Like, there really wasn't a thought behind it. It was just kind of like, I really thoroughly enjoyed being in a room full of people that are all like-minded and all have the same goal of having a good time. Like, I feel the most alive when I'm connected to people. And my way of connecting with people the most is being on stage. And so there wasn't any kind of ulterior motive. We weren't trying to, like, be the next Beyonce or like be the next Rolling Stones or something like that. It was just kind of like, we want to have fun and we want to play music for people. And so that's what we did.
Like, the music industry, whether it's big or small, local, or whatever, can be like just a lot of dudes doing everything, Mm-hmm. How do you kind of navigate those waters and, as a female with just a bunch of guys around at every step of the way?
Yeah. Honestly, my whole life I've been surrounded by guys. Like, I have 2 older brothers. I hung out with my cousins a bunch when I was a kid. I have like 40 cousins and maybe like 15 are girls.
Damn.
Yeah, so I've just like...
That's a big family.
Yeah, I have a huge family, and I'm very close to my family, and I appreciate all of them. So Andersons, if you're listening, or Jacksons, love you very much. But yeah, I've just kind of always been around guys, so it's always been this like easy language for me, I guess. And I don't know, I've never viewed myself differently for being a girl. Like I've never been like, I can't do this, or they're looking at me differently for being female, or this is going to be harder and I'm going to have like a stronger voice, which I know that a lot of females feel like have a totally different experience, and yes, sexism 100% exists in the music industry, but I'm very grateful to say that I really haven't experienced a lot of it. It's as I said before, as I mentioned earlier, I've always been somewhat of a boss, so I think whenever I've always laid out the guideline of like, I'm going to be respected, you're going to treat me as an equal, and I feel like everybody on my team has, and I feel very grateful. I've been lucky enough to be surrounded by wonderful people that view me as an equal, and it's awesome.
Right. With the newest EP, there's this idea behind, small victories. Kind of talk about that.
Yeah, I think with anything in life, as a whole, not even necessarily creatively. When I originally, let me start that over. As an artist, I feel like a lot of the times you have to rely on small victories in order to keep going, because the big things don't happen very often. Like the small victories will be like somebody sending you a message thanking you for writing a song that it really connected to them, or creating a video that you're really proud of, or even just like seeing something on the street that is just inspiring. Like that's a small victory, or someone complimenting you. That's a small victory. And
or
I feel
getting
like,
rid of all that crap that you have on your to-do list.
Exactly. That's a small victory. Like
those are all small victories.
Yeah. Like a lot of people expect like, I'm going to sell out Madison Square Garden every week when you're a musician, and that's not the reality. Like some shows will play to 500 people, some shows will still play to 50 people, and that's okay. You got to rely on the small things to keep you going, and that it helps you appreciate life a lot more. B, it's a lot more fun to live that way, It's my motto in life. Small victories.
It's a good motto.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, with this new EP, there's just a wide array of sounds on it. It's just not 6 songs sounding the same. Mm-hmm. Kind of talk about where your head was at with how you wanted things to sound with it.
I've always tried to be a very optimistic person, so I wanted to create something that made people feel very happy. But what I was going through was not something that was very happy at all. I was going through the loss of my mother, and it was something that she was sick for a very long time. And it was when I started writing this, or right whenever the cycle of late nights and Willowtides ended, it was whenever she passed. So I entered into a very dark time in my life. So the subject matter of this EP is very heavy, but the overall feeling of it is very light and airy. And I kind of wanted that drastic shift to happen. Because I think a lot of times pop music can be very hollow, and it can be very just like people kind of discredit it and disrespect it for that manner, because it doesn't really have anything of value to say. So I wanted to have something of value to say, but I still wanted to write pop music.
Right. Yeah, anytime like just the idea of like one of your parents passing, just the idea, even when you see the signs coming, it's still a heavy thing to deal with.
Oh, definitely. I think any kind of loss is, whether it be a relationship or losing a job or anything, or losing a friend even. Yeah. I think everybody goes through loss, and not a lot of people talk about it. I think that's so ridiculous. And so the whole purpose of writing these songs was to try to figure out what the fuck was going on in my own head, and to try to connect with people, to try to show people that it's okay to be vulnerable.
That's kind of one of the reasons, many, that I'm kind of doing this podcast, because I was in this really shitty relationship, for like 3 years with this girl, and I finally cut it off like a year or so ago. And I'm still trying to digest why I stayed in it for so long, what the fuck happened, trying to digest the embarrassment of it all and everything, So I get how you just there's a lot of ways where you just need to digest it.
Oh, for sure.
And talk about it.
You got to be proactive about it. You got to do something, because if you just sit and fester in your own thoughts, it destroys you.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So you have to do something. I think it's awesome that you're doing this podcast. I think it's a great thing.
Yeah, and that was the thing. I was I started listening to other people's podcasts, stuff like on WTF, Mark Maron, or the Nerdist podcast. And what they had in common was they were at one point in a shitty place in their lives.
Yeah.
Where they just wanted to blow their brains out. And they started doing this podcast, and it was kind of like the conduit to everything that they did, and kind of glued everything together. But the whole time they're talking with all these comedians and actors and whatever, and they're all kind of going through similar things in their lives at times too. And it's all just kind of like figuring it all out.
Oh, for sure.
Even years later, they're still just, figuring it out. And it's so nice to hear other people that you see out there you think have it together.
Oh, 100%. No one has it together.
Yeah,
ever.
no one has it together.
Ever.
But they're out there with some sort of success in life.
Yeah.
But they're still dealing with shit.
Yeah.
So it's great to hear, your story, my story, anybody's story.
Oh, for
to
sure.
be able to, connect.
Oh, I strongly believe that the reason why we go through hard times is to empathize with others and to connect with others. And I think it's a great thing that you're taking something that's negative and turning it into something positive. The best things come from like the darkest places, You always have this decision of to stay in this dark place and let it destroy you, or to create something amazing out of it. And you got to be proactive. It's a good thing.
Definitely. And on this new EP, my favorite song is Glitches.
Oh, thank you.
That shit is just fantastic. I'm like, I was giving it another listen yesterday, and I'm like, wait. This shit is incredible, man.
Oh,
this is
you.
like this could be a fucking hit song,
Thank you.
Like it just from the melodies, the songwriting, everything. It was just like the build-ups, like that last minute of the song is just like kind of like just an incredible, just emotional, just boom,
Thank you very much.
Talk about, writing that song.
That was a song that was created in a moment. I'll start with the lyrics of that song. The lyrics were taken from a notebook of mine. I would go to different places after my mom passed and just write in a notebook for hours, just to keep my mind busy and just to not get sucked into those dark thoughts. And so I was sitting at a coffee shop one day, and I just started writing about the people that were around me, not having any kind of reason, just kind of like free writing. And so a couple days later, we went into the studio, and every time I sit down to write a song, I'm like, okay, what do we want to write about? And so I flipped the page, and it was pages and pages, and it just like opened up to the lyrics, the braids like Frida Kahlo, cigarette smoking shallow kind of deal. And so I wrote, I just literally read off the page for the verses. And then when the chorus hit, I just kind of like immediately went to this, like, I wanted it to feel like I was standing on a mountain being like, fuck you. Like I wanted it to be this like really intense moment.
Yeah.
Almost like I was screaming off of a cliff. And so it just naturally came out, the glitches on my radar, patterns on my phone, and it basically was talking about having those distractions and saying that all those distractions might be happening, but I'm still going to stick with what I was taught from my mom. I'm still going to stick with the words that she told me, and I'm still going to stick with the values and the morals and the character that she taught me. And it was just the kind of thing where like Seth nailed it with the production. We intentionally wanted to create something extremely simple, and it just happened to end up being like only a bass and a drum for the verses, and then just kind of build it up from there.
Yeah, it was incredible. But then, like, all seriousness aside, the first time I actually listened to it, I thought it said "bitches" on the radar, and then I was like, "This sounds like a Rihanna song." Then
that's all I want in life, is to be compared to Rihanna. So.
I was thinking, I'm like, do you know how easy it is to turn any serious song into a hood song?
Oh yeah. just switch up a couple of words, man.
And I was like, "Bitches on my radar." That sounds like a song about like jealous chicks.
I like to keep it ambiguous,
Or then like another thought that popped in my head after that was like "bitches on my payroll."
Oh my god!
It'd be like a song about pimping or something, man.
Bitches on my payroll.
Next thing I know, I'm like, all these hood versions of the song are just popping in my head.
It's like the next Trap Queen.
Yes.
Yes.
Just ratchet.
Seth would love it. Yes.
Ratchet remixes for them all, man. I was
love
just man,
I love that idea, man.
Yeah, it just automatically always goes to hood all the time, man. There's been so many songs, like beautiful songs from the 70s and 80s that were about love and tenderness that rappers turned about selling coke.
Oh yeah. It's so easy. I mean, cuz like the beats are sick, and like rap music is awesome because like just the intensity of it. Like anytime you get like a damn good rapper on a track, it could take a bad track and make it amazing, you know?
Right.
So you can do whatever you want as long as you sound good, I suppose.
What's some of the music that you listen to these days?
I really enjoy experimental pop music. When writing this record, I was really into Sia, and all like everything Sia, like her album and what like her past albums, artists that she had written with in the last like however long she's been a songwriter. I was really into Sia. I was really into Haim. I was really into. I've always been really into Joan Baez. Like she's really cool. She's a really big inspiration to me. Always been into ABBA. ABBA is like my like pop dream. Like I would like cry if I met them.
ABBA was always something that was like everybody's kind of like guilty pleasure.
Oh yeah.
But when you
they're fucking amazing.
But when you kind of like dissect it,
they're really good.
Everything about that was so epic.
Oh, they were very epic. Like their costumes and their videos and their songwriting and just everything. Because what I like most about them is that they don't give off like a vibe that they would be pop stars, but they're just like they just own it. You know, like you look at photos of them or videos of them, and they just don't look like they would dance and like be these superstars. But they're enormous, and they have a theme park named after them, and
they're forever huge.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy.
They're classic, man. I love ABBA.
It's funny, like back in the day, like in the 70s and 80s, like it was all those people just didn't look like they would be stars.
Yeah, it's great. It's
it was
great.
so great.
It's great.
It would be the dorkiest looking guy, but he could sing his ass off.
Oh, I love it.
And it would have these like amazing pop tunes.
Dude, perfection's boring. Even when you're looking at somebody, like perfection's just boring. Give me character. Give me messed up teeth and like weird skin. Give me that over perfection any day.
Right, like in the 80s, you'd have these dudes that looked like they looked hella old, but they were kind of young.
Yeah. Dude, Elton John in the 70s was like the coolest motherfucker. He was so cool. And he had like a horseshoe happening and Elton John was awesome.
His hair was out of control.
Yeah.
Because it was like just bald and just horrible.
He's great.
But he was so just epic with everything else that it was just like,
I loved it. They weren't tainted by like MTV and like all of these crazy teen magazines where they felt like they have a perfect tan and perfectly white teeth all the time. What the weirdest thing to me is whenever you look like an old picture of like Jack Nicholson and he was blatantly like bald when he was like 23. Yeah. I feel like, and then now he has like, he obviously wears a toupee or something, and like everyone that had bad teeth in the 70s now has good teeth, and it's like, no, just keep that character, you know? I don't know. I hate whenever, I don't know. I don't hate many things, but
yeah, I was about to bring up Danny Brown. Like,
did he fix his tooth?
No, he'll never fix his teeth.
Oh
like,
yeah, good. Good. Get it, Danny Brown. Yeah, his grill. I secretly wish that his grill had the gap in it.
Right, but he'll never get his actual like his teeth fixed. He was like, "Fuck that! No, this is me, dude." Fuck that.
Dude, confidence with it, man.
Yeah, just
it's
own
thing.
it.
It's a good thing.
Okay, this new EP, you recorded it here at the Assemble Sound Church where we're currently recording this interview. Mm-hmm. Kind of talk about like the energy that you felt, working here.
It was a very good energy. The vibes here are always very positive, very uplifting, very I don't know, just very like you have. It feels like you always have people in your corner here, and it's great, especially when creating. I feel like a lot of artists. Well, to give you backstory of Assemble it's technically called Assemble Sound. And it's basically a studio for musicians to come and collaborate.
Yeah.
A lot like how the Motown days had like different musicians come in, amazing musicians come in and just write a song for the sake of writing. And so we would be writing a track, and Alex K from Valley Hush would come in and lay down a guitar track, or Nigel from Nigel and the Dropout would like lay down a synth part. And so it was really cool because you didn't know who was going to be in the studio that day, or who would walk through that day. And it was a very cool thing too to just record. Assemble Sound is Detroit's second oldest church, and Seth and I both grew up in a very religious home, and it was cool to kind of pay that homage to my mom as well. She was very, very, very involved in religion, so it felt right to record this in a church. It felt right. But yeah, it was very cool, and I'm very excited to continue to create here.
Yeah, it's crazy. I've been like kind of in the music scene for about 15 years now, off and on, whatever, and you always just see people coming up with their little lame brain ideas about how to get people together.
Yeah.
A lot of it is really kind of money driven or whatever.
Yeah.
But what I feel here is like
it's not money driven.
It's very much like organic and rooted in the best interests
for sure.
our budding like musical talent here in Detroit, because as time goes on, it's harder and harder for the musical talent to find comfortable places to do their thing,
right? Even
perform, it's just getting worse, and it kind of goes back to like in the 90s. I know definitely with the techno scene, hip hop scene, they would just set up anywhere that they could set up, It was a little bit before my time, but I still saw the pictures, the videos and everything. Hip hop shop, they would set up at Hart Plaza,
right?
Any sort of bar or restaurant that would just let them, So I'm kind of glad that there's an energy coming back like that.
Oh, for sure. I think that specifically, like the people just like doing pop-up shows, that I feel like in the last like 2 or 3 years, it's definitely started happening again, because it kind of like became this thing where you only played PJ's Lager House and you only played the Magic Stick and you only played like these certain venues in the 2000s.
Yeah.
But I see it like really evolving. And it's amazing too to see a pop scene start to develop in Detroit too, because I feel like there hasn't really been a huge pop artist outside of like Madonna in the Detroit scene, and so to see people like Tunde Lonergan and like RV Mendoza and Tim Schumet come up and kind of, I see them evolving and starting to create this pop scene. It's really cool.
Yeah, what sucked was like in the early 2000s, you had everything that kind of came out of the White Stripes.
Yeah,
and
which White Stripes were good. I liked White Stripes.
Oh, they were awesome, but it created this clusterfuck of other bands that try to be like them, and
well, that's gonna happen with any scene. I mean, you look at Atlanta. Whenever Outkast popped off, you had like a million bands that were trying to be like them, and the same thing with Eminem when he popped off. There were a bunch of underground
the hip hop
artists.
scene around here was crazy. Everybody was trying to be a rapper, man.
Yeah, that's just what happened. One person pops off, and it kind of defines the sound for that area.
And the funny thing was that whole like time period between like 99 to about 2003 was kind of crazy in Detroit, because those were like the Kid Rock, Eminem, D12,
just the ass kickers, dude.
White Stripes years, and it was like crazy. Like it was like everybody wanted to be a rapper, everybody wanted to have a band,
everybody wanted garage rock.
It was fucking crazy.
Yeah, and it's cool because it's now there isn't, all of those bands are like, their prime was like 10 years ago, I mean, Eminem is still killing it, and all of them are killing it in their own right, but like they first popped off at the scene in the early 2000s, so it's been 15 years. And so because there hasn't been anybody huge to define the sound in Detroit right now, it's just like a no man's land where everyone can create what they want. And so there are different pockets of these different genres, and it's really cool to see them all like mesh together.
Yeah, it's great, because in the mid 2000s, something that happened was the after party scene got killed by the city of Detroit.
Yeah, started cracking down.
They started cracking down. That's when Kwame was still in the office, and some shit happened, and they started cracking down on all the after parties. And so there was like around 2004, 2005, 2006, there was like a great after party scene where it was everybody. Yeah, it was the techno kids hanging with the rock kids, hanging with the hip hop kids. DJs playing rock shit, techno shit, and hip hop shit, all at the same party. It was fucking crazy. Yeah. But then it got way out of hand, where all the dope dealers were starting to like take over the place, running the places. So it got really fucking weird, Yeah. That shit got cracked down. Everybody kind of ran to their own corners again for a while. Right. And then what was great was that eventually everybody started like popping their head back out, And it's gotten to the place now where everybody kind of has their freedom to do their thing. Right. And what I think is great, like the difference between that scene happening and like what's happening now, which granted in the mid 2000s the internet still existed, but I feel like musicians since then, because of the internet, have really taken control of their destinies. And so I think now people are still starting to do that, but they're doing it in a lot more legit way. So the scene is definitely growing in that way of like there being after parties and there being a lot of like DIY stuff, but people are actually getting permits, and like people are actually doing it to where the like people around know what's going on, and it's not this illegal thing that's eventually going to get broken up. If anything, it's just going to be something that continues to grow. Yeah, because around when the internet thing popped, like especially MySpace. Yeah. MySpace changed the game for for everyone, especially for the Detroit hip hop scene. Yeah. All of a sudden, all these guys that didn't even know how to turn on a computer. Were internet savvy. Yeah, and so the young crowd just took it over, man. Yeah, and then all of a sudden, it changed the way all the hip hop guys were kind of creating their music and trading their music. Everybody's all, oh, I just talked to like, you know, a member of the Wu-Tang Clan on MySpace.
Yeah.
This is fucking crazy, you
Yeah,
know?
everything became extremely accessible.
Yeah, and finally these Detroit artists were able to get outside of Detroit.
Yeah.
Which something that they didn't really know what to do before.
Right.
And which is what a lot of these newer artists are able to do now.
Right.
Is to not only do their thing, have their little DIY pop-up shit in Detroit.
Yeah.
But
they can also do it in Lansing and Grand Rapids and
yeah.
Chicago if they want to.
Back then, even doing stuff in Ann Arbor and Lansing was like a big deal for them.
Yeah.
You know? But now they can do it elsewhere.
Which is so awesome to be part of the Detroit scene right now, which like I feel like the mindset is kind of like, oh, you can do a show here, cool, but what can you do in Grand Rapids? Like there's kind of this like unspoken friendly competition that happens that's like, okay, you brought it up in this level, like what am I going to do to outdo that, you know? Which I think is really cool because I think for a long time there wasn't a bar that was set of like what's good and what's bad. I feel like the fact that there were just people creating in the city was a good thing, and it still is a good thing, but now I think we're to the point where we can say that something is like, you didn't really put your full in that. Like you really didn't put all of your passion behind it. And it's an okay thing because we're at that point where we need to be putting our all in every single thing that we do.
Yeah, there needs to be a competitive edge back to the city. And for a while there's a lot of people that were trying to like, they wanted to do that sort of blind support sort of thing.
Yeah, or it was like this competitiveness of like, well, they're succeeding, why am I not succeeding? Like, why am I not getting the success that they have?
Right.
Which is like a total kill to any music scene. So I think now we've reached a point where everyone has this friendly competition that's not this bitterness. Like the bitterness is not existing right now, which is fantastic. And if we can keep that up, we'll be a thriving music scene that will affect the whole world as long as we're all on each other's team, you know? That's the most important thing, is making sure that everyone's there for the betterment of everyone instead of individuals just trying to push themselves forward.
Right, and that was always a problem that Detroit had, was as generations transitioned to other generations,
yeah,
there wasn't a support
No.
in there. It kind of started finally happening in the the electronic scene, maybe in the past, say 5 or 10 years.
Yeah.
Where some of the older cats, you know, the Carl Craigs, the Moody Man, you know, those kids were like, all right, you know, people like Kyle Hall and you know Jay Daniel, you guys can play later on when the crowd's here, just so, because you guys are good.
Yeah.
We don't need to play for this crowd, you know.
Yeah.
Carl will play early on in the night. That's fine. You don't need. But he's like, I'll give you my spots.
Yeah.
It's stuff like that, and it was really nice to see that some of these older electronic, house music, techno DJs, producers were kind of like uplifting the younger cats.
Right. And you can totally see that. You could see that with just the longevity in the Detroit scene of the techno scene overall. I think it's existed as long as it has because of that mindset. And with any genre, you kind of have to, as an artist, you always have to be able to be a support system for other artists, especially young artists. Because young artists, I mean, there's so many. I know whenever I started making music, I made so many stupid decisions. I signed so many contracts that I wish I didn't sign, you know? And if I can help in any way a band to like avoid being in a really shitty situation, then I want to help 100%, even if they're music that I'm not necessarily into, or if they're not necessarily at the level that they should be even thinking about what they're doing, like the thing that they're doing. But I don't know, just I think it's a great thing whenever musicians can help other musicians.
Yeah, definitely. Just musically wise, career wise, what do you want to do next?
I just want to help people. That's my answer always whenever it's anything with music, of like my intention. Going forward, I want to connect with people. I want to have that conversation of vulnerability. I want to have that conversation of connectedness and finding, helping people find their family and finding their tribe, whether it be through the music that I create or somebody else's music. I really don't care, as long as people are getting something positive out of what I do. As far as like the tangible things, more touring, creating more music, definitely a lot more songwriting with a lot more artists. Like we were saying, I want to help younger artists. I really want to start getting into that. There are a few bands that I've started to work with that I'm really excited about. and just create something positive and create something that people can look to Detroit and be impressed with our music scene, whatever that looks like.
How do you go about kind of like working with other people, like songwriting wise?
Oh, it's a blast. I think the key for any kind of anything where you get multiple musicians involved is you have to check your ego at the door. As soon as I step into a songwriting session with other people, I know that it's not fully my song anymore. Granted, I still have the last say if it's my song, but sometimes I'll go into writing sessions where like we don't know whose song it's going to be. We're just going to write for the sake of writing, and it's a really freeing feeling not having an agenda and not feeling, because it's so easy to get trap yourself in a box of like, no, we're writing a pop song for Flint Eastwood today. And it's like, no, what if we feel like putting really, really shitty heavy guitars in it, you know? Like really grimy sounding guitars. Or what if we feel like doing a blast beat to it? Like, let's just fucking do it.
And what if that shit sounds like it'd be a cooler song for somebody else?
Right. If we go in and it's something that 100% would fit, you know, Nigel and the Dropout more, we're going to be like, hey, Nigel, you need to get in here and put your production on this song because it's going to be amazing on your next record, you know? You got to check your ego at the door with anything in music, whether you're playing a live show, whether you're designing merch, whether you're doing anything. You got to check your ego at the door because music is not your own. I feel like a lot of people have this mindset that their integrity needs to be intact, and yes, that's true, but it's like as soon as you start performing outside of your basement, it's not yours anymore. Right. People are going to have an opinion. You're creating it for other people, and once you have that mindset where it's not yours anymore, then anything is possible. You can do literally anything you want.
Right, yeah. Once it's out there in the world, it's not fully yours anymore.
No, it's not.
It's the world's.
It really is the world's. I mean, people, like you're saying how you thought it was bitches on my payroll, you know? You can think that if you want to. That's your prerogative, you know? It's whatever.
Definitely.
Prime example of that, you know?
Right, no, definitely. That's a good way of thinking about it, where it's just like, just check your ego at the door. Because we're at a time now there where I think it's after kind of the music industry kind of got spoiled a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Where a band could come out, sell 2 million records the first 2 weeks, and go on vacation for 6 months.
Yeah,
you know?
You can't do that.
Now it's flipped where people make music to go tour now.
Yes.
And they have to make a musical product to be able to make these other products.
You have to hustle 100% of the time for anything to get done. And in order for anything to get done, you have to have a really good team behind you. I know for me personally with this whole EP, people that like Drew, for example, from Assemble Sound, like he stepped up and helped me a bunch with just like promoting and press and even handing out posters around town. Tour manager Ryan Kerrigan just stepped in and he has helped us out huge time with like day-to-day of touring. Garrett from Assemble Sound, Nicole Churchill has been helping with licensing. Like every single place needs to have somebody to make the machine run, and having one person and one ego blocking it and being like, no, I'm gonna have my say and have it to where I do everything, it's just a recipe for disaster. A band is a machine and you have to have all of the parts working in order for it to click.
Right. Just to kind of close out this podcast, what would you, to someone who hasn't heard your music yet, how would you describe what Flint Eastwood is?
Flint Eastwood is a band for anyone who enjoys music. It is a safe place for people to be themselves. It is a completely judgment-free zone for any person of any race, background, religion, sexuality, just anything. It's music that will hopefully positively affect your life and hopefully make you dance.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, man. This is fun.
Right. So that was the interview with Jax Anderson from Flint Eastwood. Go cop that new EP, Small Victories. I highly recommend it. And also, we're in January now, so that means it's the K-Fresh birthday month. My birthday is on January 23rd. So more details will follow about how I will be celebrating my birthday this year. If you'd like to support the Fresh is the Word podcast, you can go to our website, which is freshisthepodcast.com. And there's a link at the top that says support the podcast. And on that page, there is a PayPal link that you can donate to. Or there is a Amazon link on there that you can use anytime that you want to purchase anything on Amazon. Use that link, and after you make your purchases, Amazon will shoot some commission back to me. I'll just go to help the show. Also, I definitely appreciate all the listens, and if you definitely want to share the links to the website, freshasthepodcast.com, or any of the links on SoundCloud, that's definitely appreciated and will definitely help support the podcast. You can also reach Fresh is the Word on the social medias at Instagram and Twitter at Fresh is the Word 1. That's Fresh is the Word number 1. And on Facebook, you can go to facebook.com/freshasthepodcast and give us a like on that page. We're also on iTunes and Stitcher Radio, so go ahead and search Fresh is the Word on there and go ahead and subscribe to us. And it also would be very helpful if you go onto iTunes and give us a 5-star rating and throw some comments on there. Thanks for listening and see you soon.
Fresh is the word.